Miniature gardens, they really do add a beautiful and unique effect to any garden. Get to see all the plants growing interactively, just as they would out in the wild. Well, talking about miniature gardens, I have a carnivorous plants version happening right now in my backyard, which I can't wait to show you. If you're thinking about growing carnivorous plants or you have carnivorous plants at home, hopefully some of the ideas I'm about to discuss will inspire you to create your own miniature garden at home. They're really easy to make, and all it takes is a little bit of imagination and a bit of creative flair. One thing I will guarantee though is that they definitely command attention. My name is Jerry from Succulent Fly Traps. Okay, so we're going to go out now to my backyard, to my miniature garden. I've already made an update on this one. So I've got one here, that's the water feature, which doesn't have the water pump installed at the moment, but I'm going to draw your attention to my miniature garden right here. So this is one that I started at the beginning of spring. It's now autumn, the beginning of autumn. We've just had some good rainfall, and I tell you what, it's amazing how the plants are absolutely smiling. Including, have a look at this. This is a beautiful flower from a Drosera binata, a tea form. It's a sundew. Like all sundews, their leaves are covered in these sticky tentacles which catch and attract prey. And this is the reason why it's called a tea form. You can see the fork there in one of the leaves there. Look how beautifully red they are. Look how they nicely contrast with the other sundews and the Venus's flytraps in the background. Beautiful. I've got about 3 of these growing here. There's one there, there's another one there, and there's another one over here. But yeah, look at that. This flower here is, I don't think it self-pollinates. I think most of them don't self-pollinate, meaning that they rely on insects to pollinate the flowers. And that explains why the stalk, the flower stalk, is so long. The plant wants insects to pollinate the flowers, but it doesn't want to catch those insects in the process. Hence why it has such a long flower stalk. Pretty amazing, huh? Whereas these ones here, these other sundews, these are tropical sundews. As you can see here, there's plenty of flower stalks happening as well. Now these flowers, in contrast, self-pollinate. They don't rely on insects, hence probably why the flower stalks are quite short. It wants to catch insects, doesn't really rely on them to pollinate the flowers, so doesn't mind whether the stalks or the flowers are so close to the traps. In fact, it's probably a good thing. Now, as you can see here, I've got these pumice stones happening. I really love pumice stone because they really do add a lot of character to any garden. And all I've done here is I've just made a hole in the middle, and I've basically just put some peat moss in there, and I've got these beautiful sundews growing in there. And I've also got these Venus's flytraps, which look really happy. There's another one over here as well. Now, as well as adding their own beautiful touch, their own character, the rocks, they also add a 3-dimensional effect. And that's what you're seeing right here. So initially, I had the flytrap on top, and these sundews were here on the side. They were a lot smaller back in the beginning of spring. Now they're a lot larger, but you can see here how beautiful they look at the base of this Venus's flytrap, and it really does add that beautiful 3-dimensional effect. It really is pretty. Now here in the middle, I've got 2 types of moss growing. I've got this live sphagnum moss growing. Look how beautifully green that is. I just basically put them in the middle here, right up against the rock here, just sort of cover them in, put them in, into the peat moss. That keeps them nice and damp. We've had some good rainfall lately, and that's the reason why they've really greened up. It really looks nice. And I've got peat moss here as well. That's starting to green up. Those brown leaves, they're the older leaves, but they will start to green up. Let's have a look over here. What I really love about miniature gardens, as I said in my intro, is that you get to see the plants interacting with each other, as well as any insects, which are really prevalent around my miniature garden. I've got these ants around here, and every now and again you get to see one coming up here getting caught. They get attracted to these sundews, and if you look carefully, some of the leaves there have got some, don't know what they are. You can see this dark spot there. It's probably an ant, but yeah, and there's another one over here. But it's amazing just watching everything, just watching nature at work. That's what I love. Okay, now another thing I really love about miniature gardens is you get to see little things like this happening. So these are flowered early in the season, and they've released seeds, and look where the seeds have landed, right there in the pumice stone. So that's another generation of tropical sundews happening right there, and they're growing amongst the moss there. So it really does look, not only does it look nice, but it looks very natural. So yeah, I really do encourage you to start your own miniature garden. Now all I've done here, I've just got a shallow tray here, which I bought from Bunnings. That's only about, not sure how deep that is, probably about, say, 6 centimetres deep. There's no drainage holes in there. And what I did was I just put some peat moss mixed with propagating sand. So 1:3 ratio, so 3 parts peat moss to 1 part sand. I washed it a bit in water, and I've just put it in here. And what I did then is I just put these sundews in there. I put this Venus's flytrap in there into these pumice rocks, as I said, which I drilled holes into, and I just watched it grow, and it has been growing beautifully. And have a look at these small sundews. This is what I really love about these miniature gardens. Again, the interaction there. You get these small ones here, which have dispersed by themselves, the seeds. Then you get this sphagnum moss growing here, and over here it's still sandy, but I'm sure eventually you'll start to see small sundews growing there as well, including some moss as well. And over here I've just got a section here of sphagnum moss, which is it's just basically growing by itself. So whenever I need, I can just take it and put it wherever I want to, amongst the plants or around the rocks. But it really is beautiful. I just love it. I can't speak highly enough of this miniature garden. It really is a piece or a place of reflection. Again, I've got to show you this flower. Have a look at that. Gorgeous. Now, here's another thing as well. When I planted these Venus's flytraps into these pumice rocks, I also put in some sphagnum moss. And it's those little subtle signs which I like to see. Seeing that sphagnum moss growing amongst the leaves of the Venus's flytrap, I love all that. Now, what will happen now that it's autumn? The Venus's flytrap will go dormant. Those leaves will start to sort of die off a bit. That will give the sphagnum moss a chance to grow as it gets more light. So yeah, they will grow interactively here, just as they would out in the wild, and yeah, I reckon it really does look nice. Now, you can see here, this is a different type of moss. So I've got a nursery here, and I've grown my plants in pots, and you have these layers of moss growing on top. And when I was repotting my plants at the beginning of spring, I just basically took the top layers off, and I just put bits of pieces of moss here. That's why you're seeing this arrangement of moss growing with the sphagnum moss here in the middle there. But yeah, really looking good. And talking about ants, I've got an ant happening right there. Where is he? There he is. So he Right there, I saw him there. Whoop, he's just fallen in. Must be... wonder whether he's going to get attracted to the sundew. Don't know. Oh, maybe he is. Oh, maybe he is. Here we go. Let's have a look. This is what I love. Nope. Not this time, but just goes to show you that, you know, they do get attracted to these plants, and you get the scout ants just foraging for nectar or anything like that, and I'm sure they find these sundews very, very attractive. For my watering device, I've got this bucket here, and basically it's just full of water. I do have a wick in there because it's been raining, it's so full, and I just placed that wick over the stick here. I've got some wooden doweling here, and that just drips into the center of the tray. That sort of acts like a very primitive or simple tap. Helps me hydrate the miniature garden when I'm not here, when I'm at work. But yeah, as you can see, it is flourishing, and I'm very, very, very happy with it. Okay, what I want to also point out is that most of the times when I see these Venus's flytraps, the traps are closed. Now I've got these two open here, but during the spring and summer, most of the times they were closed. And I like to sort of shine my torch on the sides of the trap to see the silhouette, and I knew they weren't flies because I can tell the shape of a fly, but I thought, well, what is it? So I came out here with a torch one day at night, had a look around here, and every night there's these little slaters that come out, and they like to come in here and just burrow around and just, I'm not sure what they do, whether they just like to laze around or feed on the moss or whatever, but in the process they do end up crawling through here, and that explains why a lot of these traps are closed, because they've caught those slaters and they're digesting. But yeah, probably explains, well, it does explain why they are growing so well. Plenty of food to catch, and again, another example of how nature works. I'm just loving watching it in action.